Right, so first things first, got a fence post, another one up to the corner, so we've got this patch of veggie patch now. So you can see the greeny yellow line. There's 3 runs of fence line already. So it goes all the way around. Not a bad start. We'll start doing some pathways next. Okay, I have a couple of things. Bible as usual, and a letter. So, jump around a bit again.
What do you think of the new assisted dying bill here in the UK?
I'm booked in next week, mucker. This country is a fucking shithole.
International humanitarian law topics, right? Sources of where the law comes from, what it means in war and peace, types of armed conflict, because not all wars are the same. Some are over territory with military hardware, and some are over territory for aid. Yeah, civilians and combatants and prisoners of war. Civilians. So when we look at international law and what we discussed in our pipeline conflict, it's where human rights come from. It's an agreement between an occupier and occupied peoples to agree to participate in human rights. Right, we doctors, so certain things are written into the courtroom internationally under international humanitarian law. So when we said we are prisoners of war, we then need to look at non-international armed conflict. Is the state armed? We already discussed that. But civilians, what are civilians at international law? And what's the right of protected persons at international law? What is international humanitarian law even having any jurisdiction in what should be a sovereign statehood, but is under United Nations nation statehood? So where does this humanitarian come from? Now we can look at the definition of that in a dictionary. Some dictionaries define it as without God. That would somewhat mean that it's related to statehood, without son, without lineage.
World wars change worlds, and if you have a global agenda then global problems allow you to offer global solutions. This is an agenda that's projected a long way forward. The Muslim world being brought into a war with the political Zionism, what today we call Israel, and that this would, you know, in my terms, create a vortex that would draw in the world, in our terms, America, the European Union, NATO, into this war. I mean, I know it's hard to believe for anyone frickin' sane. And then you've got what I've been saying now way back in the 1990s. The idea is for this Third World War to involve Russia and China against the West. Yeah. And what's opening up in the Ukraine, while all this is starting to go on in the Middle East, is another front against Russia. The United States is preparing for a war against Russia through Ukraine, and that what they plan is to try to take Crimea back. Saudi Arabia and Qatar, who are 51st states of the United States, there are many of those, mind, funding this ISIS and funding this terrorism, while the Americans, who could tell them to stop any time, are saying, are condemning the very terrorism that their 51st states are supporting. Well, the picture's so bloody obvious. It's a setup. When you look at it from this perspective, what is happening in the Middle East is not random. None of it's been random. Libya's not been random. Syria's not been random. None of it. And ISIS certainly isn't random. It's part of this long-term plan to take over the world by creating enormous chaos to which they can offer the order out of the chaos, their order, their new world order. When we realize that, we can see that events are not random, but coldly calculated. These people are sheer, undiluted evil. And people need to understand that. Otherwise, they will reject that anyone could do what they're doing and kill and maim and slaughter so many people. They can do it because they have no heart, they have no empathy, they have no emotional compassion, and thus mayhem is their currency, and they have no emotional consequence. They are not like us, so don't judge what they'll do by what you would do, because it ain't the same thing.
Right, so dictionary. Human. Belonging to man or mankind. Belonging to, owned. Having the qualities or attributes of a man. Quasi, looks like a man but is human. Not divine or sacred. Now, some other dictionaries go into that a little bit further, in that you believe that Jesus Christ was merely a man, and that you have no lineage, progeny. Humane, pertaining to man. Human, having the feelings and dispositions proper to man. Inclined or disposed to treat other human beings or animals with kindness. Kind, benevolent, compassionate, tender, merciful, benevolent, beneficiary. Right, so not divine or sacred, but humane. Humanism, humane nature or character. Humanity, disposition of mind proper to man. Literary culture, disposition of mind proper to man. This would bring in mental health, mind, lunacy, lunatic. Humanistic, pertaining to humanity. Humanitarian, one that holds Jesus Christ was merely a man, one that exalts the human element in Christ's nature, a philanthropist belonging to Humanitarians, pertaining to humanity, Humanitarianism, the doctrine of the Humanitarians, humanity, quality of being human, the nature of a man, the human race, mankind collectively, the quality of being humane, kindness, benevolence, mental cultivation, liberal education, the branches of polite or elegant learning, humanize, to render human or humane, to soften or subdue.
Okay, next.
To make susceptible of gentle or kindly feelings, to become or be made more humane, to become civilized, humanizer, one that humanizes, humankind, the whole race of man, the human species. So there would be black, white, yellow, humanly, in a human manner, after the manner of men. So like we said, like, but not actually it, just like it. Right, so if we go mankind, the human race, manliness, the quality of being manly, manly, having qualities becoming a man, firm, brave, strong, like a man. So man, manfully, in a manful manner. Mandate, man. An adult male person, the human race, one of manly qualities, any person, a male servant or attendant, a vassal, a tenant, a husband, a familiar term of address. A tenant, a husband, a vassal, a male servant.
Now, I know what they do because I used to ask them to do it. I mean, when I was in the Mossad, and we had a guy that gave us problems in the US, and he was speaking out, and he was talking like Pete talked once and said, Israel is bombing Lebanon with cluster bombs. We should say, hey, who's that guy? You know, Pete Makaki, we used to call him, which is Pete the cockroach. Because he makes a lot of noise and you can't get rid of him. So what you do is you get in touch with a guy in the station in New York or in the station in Washington. You say, tell the guys at B'nai B'rith to label him. And of course the campaign starts, and before you know it, the guy's labeled. And he's an anti-Semite, because that's what we say he is. And that's one stain you cannot wash. Now, it shames me as a Jew to tell you that, but that's the fact, and it's wrong.
Mandate, a command, a rescript of the Pope, a precept, an injunction, a commission. Mandatory, containing a command. Preceptive. All right, so man versus human. So I'll just stop quickly.
Just, sorry? want to insure myself against becoming Jewish. A maximum cover, not too high a premium if possible.
Yes, well, I think you better take a seat.
Thank you, thank you.
Are you comfortable?
Oh, I'll get by, I'll get by.
Now, look, while what you suggest is perfectly reasonable in every way, we as the insurers have to satisfy ourselves, you see, that the chance of you becoming Jewish is minimized as far as possible. Do you understand?
You mean you think I'm already Jewish?
No, I don't.
You think I'm Jewish already?
No.
Well, if you think I'm Jewish, just come right out and say so.
I think you're Jewish. Little note of levity. However, I will have to take down some details, obviously, for the sake of. Now, could I have your name, please?
It's Abraham's.
Abraham's, yes. Now, and your address?
35 Bar Mitzvah Garden. Stanmore.
Yes, right. Well, Mr. Abrahams,
No, please, call me Reuben.
Thank you. Well, Robin,
Reuben.
Sorry, Reuben. While I personally don't doubt your sincerity in any way at all, I mean, I really mean that, I can't, of course, answer, you see, for my superiors.
Oh, superior schmooperior. Let them tell you what to do.
Now, look, that is the sort of thing that may very well arouse suspicions. That Jewish expression.
Look, I can't help my face, can I? What can I do about my own face? I can't do anything about my own face. Look, why don't you accept the word of a man when he says he's not Jewish? Look at me. I'm miserable. Jewish people have a wonderful sense of humour. They're funny. Look at Max Bygrave.
Max Bygrave is not Jewish.
Exactly. All my life, I'm Gentile. Please, I'm as goy as they come.
Look, I must ask you to leave the office.
Oh, what a mashuganella. Please, would you mind, do me a favour, just reconsider my offer, would you please?
Look, you don't seem to understand, Mr. Abrams, the very principle of insurance is that you, the client, pay we, the insurers, large sums of money.
Yes?
Yes, that is it. that is insurance, you see. Now, were you to ask me to insure you against becoming a Catholic...
A Catholic? What do you take me for? What do you take me for? I should want a policy against sudden conversion to Catholicism. You must think I'm balmy.
£1 a month.
Oh, £1 a month, I'll take it. Look, could you insure my friend Jaime as well?
Against becoming a Catholic, certainly.
Oh, that's wonderful. He's outside. I'll just go and get him. It won't take a moment, thank you. Jaime, the man says he will insure you against becoming a Catholic. I told you I'll get you a good deal. Come on in. This is my friend Jaime Borgia.
The book of mankind, and we can see by the starting image that it's a book about all the different cultures around the world. Right, so there's pictures of all these different tribes and places and all these different habits. See? Africa, Europe, Britain. See? Britain. Before everyone started wearing football shirts with logos on them. Right, New Guinea. So the Book of Mankind, right, which all these different animals and places from around the world. There's a big bell. the Rockefeller Memorial Carillon, Riverside Church, New York. The largest spell ever cast in England. Right, so the Book of Mankind versus this definition of what it means to be human and have this humanitarian law thrust at you in these battlefield scenarios where prisoner of war, right, civilians, general protection for all civilians. See, they have this thing called collateral damage, but they also have this thing about knowing that you're occupied and how and what's going on versus being totally ignorant, which put you in a different category at law in relation to prisoner of war. Because how are you going to take on a military machine that's serving that foreign power? And we see that global interest has been a plan for 40 years now. And we can see that this and the Red Cross sort of have something relative to what's going on. So, we get back to this. Chapter 12, because we're up to chapter 12. And in that day thou shalt say, O Lord, all caps, I will praise thee, though thou wast angry with me, thine anger is turned away, and thou comfortest me. Oh, right. We have a stone. Behold, God is my salvation. G, lowercase o d. I will trust and not be afraid, for the Lord, all caps, Jehovah, all caps, is my strength and my song. He also is become my salvation. There's this understanding that through a stone something was done. And behold, God is my salvation. That will free me from my oppressor. Right? Because this is now a claim at law. Therefore with joy shall ye draw water out of the wells of salvation. And in that day shall ye say, Praise the Lord, all caps. Call upon his name, declare his doings among the people, make mention that his name is exalted. So we already discussed what was put down with a scroll and a pen. We're a few chapters in and described some of that process hidden in the words. And we get to this point now where we have on our scroll from some command structure, some record, because we were told to record stuff. And in that day ye shall say, Praise the Lord, call upon his name, declare his doings among the people, make mention that his name is exalted. Draw water out of the wells, out of the towns, 50 towns across the country, raising a flag and consecrating it in the name of Almighty God, standing within this legal capacity, putting something very legitimate on the table at international law, meaning that those that oppress you can now be pointed at, because a recognition of something that is going on, put some sort of standing on the table here. A remnant of them was left behind so that that standing could be taken. Sing unto the Lord, all caps, for he hath done excellent things. This is known in all the earth. Cry out and shout, thou inhabitant of Zion, for great is the Holy One of Israel in the midst of thee. Now, a Zionist will take this literally, but let's put this into context, right? Because this would then apply to other countries around the world as well, not just Australia. Sing unto the Lord, all caps. So this guidance, rule set, gameplay that you were told to put on a scroll. Sing unto the Lord, for he hath done excellent things. Well, your product from his words or that creation are in front of you and they are excellent. Okay? Once you can say you've got them in front of you, then you could say, behold, God is my salvation. I will trust and not be afraid. Because that instruction set, like Luke said at the beginning, the instructions written in order. So when you have understanding of what's on the table in front of you, you could then say, cry out and shout, thou inhabitants of the king's dominions, territories, domain, for great is the Holy One of the Creator of Zion, the founder, the lineage, the ancestry, the remnant of Israel, moon, sun, stars, in the midst of thee. So that could then translate to, great thou inhabitant of the king's dominion, for great is the Holy One of the sun, the moon, and the stars in the midst of thee. The congregation, oh look, he's the one of understanding. He's the Holy One among you. He's the one that's able to bring forward that scroll. The burden of Babylon, which Isaiah the son of Amoz did see. Lift ye up a banner upon the high mountain, exalt the voice unto them, shake the hand, that they may go into the gates of the nobles. So, turning up at the king's domain or the shrine of remembrance or the shrines in other capital cities or an Anzac statue in any of your towns. Lift ye up a banner upon a high mountain, consecrate a flag and say, we're here. I have commanded my sanctified ones, I have also called my mighty ones for mine anger, even them that rejoice in my highness. So now we're looking at the military and the politicians and so on. The noise of a multitude in the mountains like as of a great people. A tumultuous noise of the kingdoms of nations gathered together. The Lord, all caps, of hosts, mustereth the host of the battle. So this Lord with all caps must have some link that all the nations have used through the sun, the moon and the stars to have some sort of foundation in international humanitarian law, right? They come from a far country, from the end of heaven, even the Lord, all caps, and the weapons of his indignation to destroy the whole land. So come back to this. Destruction doesn't necessarily mean troops. It might mean financial demise. Howl ye, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It shall come as a destruction from the Almighty. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. There's this clicking. Oh, they don't serve us. They don't serve a lineage in God, so therefore they can't serve Anzac. So therefore they can't serve your own house, your own town. So they serve some sort of administration. Right, so eventually they wake up and they start to realize, oh, they are the attacker. They are doing these things. Therefore shall all hands be faint, and every man's heart shall melt. The Matthew 6:24 comes to mind, where you'll begin to love the one over the other and begin to hate the other. And they shall be afraid. Pangs and sorrows shall take hold of them. They shall be in pain as a woman that travaileth. They shall be amazed one at another. Their faces shall be as flames. Wow. Really?
Watch this.
You hurting niggas' hearts right now.
Watch this, brother. They need to see this, though. And that wasn't no $1 bill. I don't know if the camera could catch it. All of a sudden now, this green piece of paper is worth nothing. It ain't worth nothing no more. You ain't finna tell me I'm finna spend my whole life down here simply just chasing after this, when this could be torn up or burned and all of a sudden it ain't even got no value? It gotta be something deeper and greater to life than just chasing after this bag, man. That's why if we talking about building a generation, if we talking about chasing after our God-given purpose, oh, sign me up for that. The bag is important, but the bag is not the top of the food chain.
Behold, the day of the Lord, all caps, cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. He shall destroy the sinners, debtors, the zombie companies, release the Kraken, sink all the credit machine and everything associated with those financial instruments. Pull out the liquidity pool from underneath the entire bubble. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. The sun, the moon, the stars. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their E-L, light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, Ra, sun. And the moon shall not cause her light to shine, Isis, moon. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay lo the haughtiness of the terrible. Your line of authority might be incorrect. This can be proven by lineage and ancestry, a will and a testimony that proves by some blessing of Almighty God into the Constitution where that line of authority stems from. So, at a legal aspect, what is at the moment might feel normal, but is not. A foundational construct that allowed all of the rest of it to be layered upon through some sort of starting foundation point crosses. So, to prove this without shadow of doubt, using a testimony, scroll and a pen, remember, we can define very clearly what is true lineage. And in doing that, can't we then define what's not? What would bring this into your land? What would bring all of these rules upon you over time? Because we're only talking about a century, we're not talking about 5,000 years here. We look at Iran, they've been around for longer than 5,000 years. So, old Persia. So, what brings around these gameplay changes? I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth shall remove out of her place, and in the wrath of the Lord of hosts, all caps, and in the day of his fierce anger, and it shall be as the chased roe, and as a sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people, and flee every one into his own land. When a controlling party collapses, and the people of those lands can no longer rely on the safety or security, they flee. Right? Like Israel, the nation state in Palestine right now. All the citizens run away, and it shall be as the chased roe, and as the sheep that no man taketh up. They shall every man turn to his own people. Well, I'm going back to America. I'm going back to Australia. But you're Israeli Jew. No, I'm an Australian now. Every man turn to his own people, and flee everyone into his own land. This is a collapse, isn't it? Unless you trump and you throw everyone out before they have a chance to flee, everyone that is found shall be thrust through, and everyone that is joined unto them shall fall by the sword. Their children shall be dashed to pieces before their eyes. Their houses shall be spoiled, and their wives ravished. Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver. And as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. That kind of relevant to what's going on in the world today, given that we have a nation state on the land bastardizing this into a literal instead of a parable. Do we see the context in our own country versus those that believe this is their holy book when it's actually a New Testament that we have? When we get to looking at how different faiths treat Jesus Christ, might also indicate a little bit here. Right, so the father is removed from the head of the house, subordinated into some childlike lunatic state. The house is then taken over and spoiled. I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver. Some sort of banking system that's designed to make them work because they don't have the foresight of mind to keep or trade in real value. Right, they're young men and the children, the fruit of the womb, use of the fruits. So they won't delight in it because now the head of the household is removed away and replaced with the wife being ravished by the state. Now you pay for 2 houses if you get a divorce. Now you have this risk of division in your own house all the time because of the state. Their bows shall dash young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. Overthrew. So Sodom and Gomorrah delighted in all of the vain things that caused their country to go into demise and eventually collapse in like a Weimar Republic. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. The constitution is thrown in the bin, and a new constitution takes its place because it can't outlive more than 130 odd years. So as a country, when you look at England, doesn't that have hundreds of years? And when you look at the Commonwealth of Australia, is that only a baby in relation to the world? If Iran is 5,000, say 800 years old, would that make Australia a baby or an infantile state in that regard? But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there, and the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant places, and her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged. Her time is close. The time is at hand. We have this literal pushing of biblical prophecy in some evangelical way. We see Zionism taking the word literally, like it has to follow through with something it created in 1948. We're disregard 400 years of the King James Version Bible when a nation state of Israel just didn't exist. We disregard it being called Palestina. We disregard a sky story in Isis, Ra, and Elohim. We see that directly in chapter 13 of Isaiah, where it mentions the sun, the moon, and the stars in the same as it mentions Israel. So would this be a nation that was forged out of the sun, the moon, and the stars as a rule book? Would that be a mirror foundation to another nation? What if the rule book was Tibetan? What if the rule book was Chinese? What if the rule book was Russian? Do we have all these languages now, diction, for definition of all these words that we just spoke? And when we read them, especially together, do we not see things through points of view? Things that you may not otherwise have picked up on just by analysing the script in the scripture, right? So would this then apply to a universe? Is this a closed set of instructions for one verse? So if we lived in a multiverse, would this closed set of instructions be the same core instructions to another nation?
Many Canadians are feeling anxious about the drastically changing world around them. Democracy, pluralism, self-determination, and freedom are values which Canadians hold dear, and ones which the government is determined to protect. As the anthem reminds us, the true north is indeed strong and free.
So then two nations believing in the same foundational ideologies. So where did Zionism come from? Where did papism come from? What are papist states? Why isn't that the Roman Catholic Church when it's papism? Why are we warned about synagogue? Why are we warned about this big moneylender machine? Do we see now how this all starts to tie together?
Her Majesty's cruiser Gambia comes into Portsmouth Harbour, bringing Haile Selassie, the Emperor of Ethiopia, to Britain for a 3-day state visit. The Duke of Gloucester escorts His Imperial Majesty down the gangway. The Emperor wears the uniform of an Ethiopian Field Marshal. From Portsmouth, he journeys to Victoria Station. A crowd of Ethiopians watch Her Majesty the Queen welcome the Emperor to her capital. This is his first visit for many years. He was last in this country as a refugee after Mussolini's troops had invaded his kingdom. The Duke of Edinburgh and the Queen Mother greet the Emperor, who is known to his own people as the King of Kings, the conquering Lion of Judah, elect of God, power of the Trinity. The heir to his throne, the Duke of Hara, accompanied his father on the journey. Haile Selassie, whose hat is plumed with lion's tails, meets again Field Marshal Lord Alanbrooke, Sir Winston Churchill, Mr. Eden, and other distinguished leaders. The two sovereigns, followed by the two dukes, make their way from the platform to begin the journey to Buckingham Palace.
International humanitarian law. The Civilians Convention, as Convention 4 is often called, marked the first attempt to provide comprehensive rules for the protection of the civilian population in occupied territory by imposing limits on the allowable acts of an occupying power. Civilians are now granted a protected status in much the same way as persons rendered hors de combat, through injury, illness, or detention. Furthermore, the Civilians Convention also outlines guidelines for the protection of enemy nationals who find themselves in the territory of the opposing state upon the commencement of hostilities. Right, occupying power for the protection of the civilian population in occupied territory. The relevant treaty provisions regarding combatant status are contained in Geneva Convention 1, Geneva Convention 3, Additional Protocol 1, as outlined in Geneva Convention 3, Article 4A. Combatants and other protected persons are those who fall into the following categories. So it very specifically tells you, there's 6 different things there. Right? Tells you what a status is at international law. Now, if we're talking about a flag of our forefathers, would that be some sort of emblem? Because now we look at Red Cross, Red Crescent, Red Diamond. Right, so protecting humanitarians in humanitarian aid and humanitarian lawfare. Starting to comprehend why this was important and that there is something actual physical that none of you have looked at. Pearls before the swine sort of stuff. Because you're all talking about all this American pseudo-legal garbage all the time, instead of being mankind, instead of being the people with the power, you're the people without the power, scrambling to work out what you mean all the time. Pretty interesting that, right? So let's have a look at, I got this letter. We'll close with this. Proclamation, 18th of June, 1829, by James Sterling. By His Excellency James Sterling, Esquire, Captain in the Royal Navy and Lieutenant Governor of His Majesty's Settlement in Western Australia. Now, if we go down, and whereas by the establishment of His Majesty's authority in the territory aforesaid, the laws of the United Kingdom as far as they are applicable to the circumstances of the case do therein immediately prevail and become security for the rights, privileges and immunities of all His Majesty's subjects found or residing in such territory. This lays out an initial security, is the word used here, of law at the establishment of Western Australia. Now, what's important here is some changes at Imperial Conference 1926. As far as they are applicable to the circumstances of the case, do therein immediately prevail and become security for the rights. as far as they are applicable. So now we go through this chain of law to get to the Statute of Westminster 1931, making a severing occur. But on page 2 of this letter, and whereas the protection of laws doth of right belong to all people, whosoever who may come to or be found within the territory aforesaid, I do hereby give notice that if any person or persons shall be convicted of behaving in a fraudulent, cruel, or felonious manner towards the Aborigines of the country, such person or persons will be liable to be prosecuted and tried for the offence, as if the same had been committed against any other of His Majesty's subjects. Right, so there's an express instruction not to interfere with the Aborigine, and there's an express instruction to hold those that do accountable as if they were accountable to each other. So we have this sort of framework here that everyone wants to ignore, because you can't stop a people on a land. And when we look at a people occupied, in occupied territory, we listen to the words of self-determination. That's a right to return back to who you were when you were put under administration in the first place. So when were you put under administration? When did changes occur on a world stage that were caused by conflict, that were caused by warfare and the financial burdens of that warfare?
I'd also like to pass on my condolences to Sir John Kerr's wife and family, and lament the fact that he died, a controversial figure, in what has become generally recognised as a tragic completion of a very promising career. The Leader of the Opposition has just made a very partisan and militant speech, without which I probably wouldn't have entered the spoken on the condolence motion, but I think a few things need to be said after his remarks. And he wasn't here in those times, and one needed to be here in those times to understand the ambience of the events and the sequence of the events. But the first thing to say is Sir John Kerr was a person of substance, and he was very interested in public affairs and public life. He's like a lot of frustrated people of quality. They wanted to be in public life but never ever made the jump into public life, would never quite take the chance. He was such a person. He was always there's always a dalliance at the edge of public affairs. And he became Governor-General on the recommendation of the former Prime Minister, Gough Whitlam, because he was known to him and known also his interest in public life and public affairs. And it was with that, I think, that the government of the day had great expectation of him at least having a role in public life, a role which otherwise had been denied to him over the course of his career. Not that it had been a public life, life without distinction, because his service in the New South as Chief Justice of New South Wales and as a barrister of note was he was a very well-regarded person, and particularly, I think as the Prime Minister said earlier, legally in all quarters, and he had a reasonably close affinity to the Labor movement. That's why he was trusted by the Labor Party. Now, the fact of the matter was, the Labor Party makes the political heroes of this country, and when people cross it, they wear the crosses it puts upon them. And whether it's Billy Hughes, that's true. Whether it's Billy Hughes, Billy Hughes or it's Joe Lyons, that is the truth of it. And he he has worn the admonition of the Labor Party, and that's what you're really talking about now. Now, the fact is, he did it for one reason: he deceived his Prime Minister. He didn't tell him he was prepared to sack him. He didn't tell him he was prepared to sack him. Now, I was at Government House with the then Prime Minister on the last time he saw Sir John Kerr in a meeting of 3 for an Executive Council meeting to appoint the Chairman of the Darwin Reconstruction Authority. And it was a meeting which was filled with bonhomie, cordiality and the like. And as we left and walked down that long corridor at Government House, the Prime Minister was saying things complimentary to the Governor-General. And as we left, the Prime Minister intimated to me that the Governor-General was a very proper person who would observe the constitutional position and constitutional prerogatives, including telling the Prime Minister what he intended for him. Because had the Prime Minister known that he intended to deceive him and dismiss him, another course of action would be available to him. That is the nub of Sir John Kerr's problem with the Labor movement and those who support it, and it will be forever. It's a sad thing for him, but it's the facts. Now, Mr Speaker, like anyone who's made a contribution in this country, they are to be admired, and in a personal sense, he came from not privileged circumstances and he surmounted them, and he was a person of substance. But in the end, one's got to follow that substance with integrity. It was a lack of integrity in politically doing the Prime Minister he didn't have, and he suffered history's admonition as a result.